So I had to get it out, shake it off. Hello. Hello out there in the YouTube world. It is time for story time with Dottie. I know I'm a few minutes late, but you know, sometimes your computer is just like, hey, we're not going to do this when you need us to do it. So, hello, Kirk Wilson and Sue Finelli, my troopers in chat. So happy to see you both here. I am drinking some real nice cold water, just in case you're wondering. It's quite good. Quite good. Gotta stay hydrated. So what's going on, everyone? How are you lovely peoples doing? Well, since I started late, I'm just like not even prepared. I normally water, right? Yeah. Yeah, you know what? You just think whatever you need, Kirk. Whatever helps you sleep at night. If you need to think that I'm some drunk chick, go right ahead. I definitely am not. Sue says she's doing okay. Sorry to hear that you're just okay. I feel that quite a bit today. Woke up this morning and went to go to work, and my car wouldn't start. So then I went back to sleep. And that's a little better. Yeah. So I went back to sleep, and I woke up, and then I jumped my car and went and got a new battery, and it was like $100 more expensive than I thought it was going to be. So that was really frustrating and annoying. Sue says, I'm tired of seeing everyone in masks. Yes, 100%. I was talking to Zulu One today, and I was just saying, like, I find myself like struggling that I really want to have compassion for these people. Like, I feel like I need to be the bigger person and just look at them with understanding and love and compassion. And man, I'm struggling with it hard. Bask Bear, what's going on? Yeah, I'm struggling with it really hard because it makes me so like mad and sad that everyone is so jaded and disillusioned, and they just think that wearing a mask is the way to go. And I just like want to ask people, like, how long are you going to do that for? Because I mean, nobody really cares that much if you don't wear one. Do I have these on the right way? Oh, I do. Okay. Just making sure they're not backwards. But yeah, I mean, it really is like so exhausting to never see someone's face. Like, I could see Carrie Skates, what's happening? I can see how like people who are like torturing you and trying to break you, they would do the same things over long periods of time. And I mean, eventually you're just going to be so worn down that you just agree to whatever just so they'll stop doing that. And because yeah, people are just so much like, I just don't want confrontation, I don't want to be a problem or a burden or anything like that. Or like, oh, what if someone like hassles me about not wearing a mask? So like, I'm just gonna do it. But for those of us who are still holding strong and not complying, it's really hard to just not get like worn down over it. And, I felt myself thinking a lot like, well, should I just, hey, Zulu One, what's up? People are so soft, no backbones. Yeah, exactly. 100%. I mean, the fact that I'm a 5'3" woman and I cry really easily. I hate confrontation. I get overwhelmed. The fact that I can go into places without a mask and not, um, just not comply. I mean, like, how am I like a stronger leader than, like all the men around? Like, women are not supposed to be leaders of men. And but on a good note, the other day, it was Monday, I went, wears me out. It's exhausting. Yeah, that's exactly it, Sue. Like, it's so exhausting. But yeah, Monday I got off work and then I had to get gas. And so I was wearing a shirt. Um, I thought I had it. Oh wait, I do have it handy. One sec. Wanted to look cute for the people, so I'm not wearing this, but I really need to wear it more because I was wearing it in public the other day. So I was wearing that the other day, and I went to get gas after work, and the lady in the little podium thing at Fred Meyer, she told me that she really loved my shirt and that she wanted to get one before she moves to Texas. Told her that she should. And then I went back to my pump, and the guy on the other side of the pump, he read my shirt and he was like, hey, me too. And we just had a little chat there at the gas pumps about how we're not going to comply to the masks and the nonsense and just the pure insanity. Like, I just want to move to 50 acres and have a good community. But I don't know. I feel like all the bears are moving out of Washington. And so I wish that one could take me with them. And yeah, but anyway, so I had those two nice moments with just random strangers because of my shirt. And then I went to the fair, and they had just said, like, before the fair opened, that masks will be required whether you're inside or outside. And so I read on the website their policy regarding masks, and they said that they would respect your medical exemption. And so my friend and I were going to go, and he was like, hey, did you check out, like, what's the mask deal? Like, are we going to be okay? And I was like, well, we're not fucking wearing masks. We're not doing it. So, like, we're just not. And he's like, okay, cool. Yeah. Like, I believe you that we're not. And so we get to the fair, and really thirsty today. Yeah, we get to the fair and walk up to the gate. They checked inside my bag, my purse, and then they asked if we needed masks. And I said, no, we both have a medical exemption. And they said, okay, wait, just one sec. And so, I was wondering, like, okay, who am I going to have to talk to? Am I going to have to get, like, temperature checked or, any bullshit like that, whatever. And they bring this little lady over, and she's like, okay, so you and him both, you have medical exemptions? I said, yeah, we do. She's like, okay, cool. I just have to give you this blue wristband, and then you're good to go. And, like, so here is my medical exemption for the fair. and that's a scone. Zulu one thought it was a burger. It's not. It's a scone, just basically a biscuit with jam. But so there, right there, my blue wristband is my medical exemption to go in the fair. Which, they used to give you gold or yellow stars and number tattoos to show what group you're in. But now you just get a nice little blue wristband and you're good to go. And I mean, nobody bothered us while we were in the fair. And there were other people not wearing masks, but I didn't see a single other person wearing a blue wristband. So that means that they put the mask on to get in the fair, the outdoor fair, and then they took it off once they were inside. And Zulu says, let's all go to Florida. Yeah, you know what? I am willing to go literally anywhere at this point. I so wish that I could. I feel like I'm like working off a 9-year like punishment sentence to stay in this state because my son is here, and so I can't take my son with me and go to South Carolina or Florida or Idaho or Wyoming or South Dakota or any of those places. But I also can't leave. I can't leave him. I can't just go by myself. And so he's only 9, and so I have to stay here, and it's so exhausting. I can't stand being in Washington with these people. It makes me sad because it's been my home my whole life. And I can't just makes me sad to think of leaving my home, but also it's becoming a liberal hell. And I don't know. I'm glad that people don't really bother me about the masks. But still, it's just my job is ending and I have to find another one, and I don't know where I can possibly go. But honestly, I think I need to just start doing more stuff on my own. So if you want one of my paintings, those are for sale. I also just made blackberry jam, which is fucking amazing. I picked the blackberries right here in my community, and I made a handful of jars of blackberry jam. So those are for sale as well. I don't know. I mean, I think I need to just sell stuff on my own because how am I supposed to go and work for one of these companies that's trying to require vaccination and all this shit? How am I supposed to work for a place like that? Yeah. Mexico is where it's at. Dude, I would love to live in Mexico. I mean, cheap land, freaking guacamole, pico de gallo. I want to go to the good part of Mexico, not, Murderville, as I am white, so I don't need to end up on the news that way. But yeah, I would love to go to Mexico. Probably an awesome freaking growing season there, all year round growing season. Grow shit that I can't grow up here. Sounds awesome. Anywhere but Florida. I mean, there's good parts of Florida, but yeah, I'm not really too much of a fan of gators and hurricanes. The gator canes, Sharknado, but gator canes. Yeah. Feet pics, just saying. Yeah. I mean, how sad is it that it's getting to the point that selling my feet pictures is moving higher up on the list of things that I should just do because we don't need to go into the pros and cons of selling feet pics, but man, I would really rather sell jam. If I'm going to sell something, I would rather sell jam to the people, but I don't know. If anyone knows of a job in email me, dottieswonderdomes1111 @gmail.com. Because, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have no idea what to do for work at this point. It's quite annoying. A couple hours north of Dottie, no one enforces the mask. That's nice. Yeah, I live down in Shelton, and so I just go to the places that I know don't really bother me, but there have been a few places that as soon as I walk in. Oh yeah, so today when I went to get my battery at Les Schwab, standing in line, and everyone in there is wearing a mask, obviously. Well, the lady at the counter, she had hers down like under her nose, and then as soon as it was my turn to go up to the counter, she pulled her mask up over her nose. And I don't know if people even do that consciously or if it's just like, I don't think that they even realize that they do it. But it's like, oh, well, she's breathing in here. So if I pull up my mask over my nose, I'll be super safe. It's just weird. Like, I really don't think that people notice how much they touch their masks. Like, I know you're not washing your hands that often, so like how many germs are you putting on that freaking thing when you're touching it and readjusting it constantly? A lot of brown people. Yeah, in Mexico, definitely a lot of brown people. Like, yeah, I mean, that's why I gotta have community. Like, I don't want to be around bike thieves or, creepy landscaper people who are gonna try and steal the white woman. I don't need that. Like, I need to be around bears and flat earth people. Like, those are my tribes. And so yeah, bears, like, please adopt me. I'm just a 35-year-old woman up for adoption, will live in the field, and like, I will grow all the food, and I will tend to the animals. So like, please scoop me up, put me on your land. I'll be more than happy. Apparently the cartel of agreements, there's no trouble in this state. Querétaro, I'd go anywhere here alone anytime. I'm also a whitey. I like the white people. Yeah, definitely like the white people. Gotta clean my screen. Yeah, you better do that, Kirk. You don't want a dirty screen. All the kids in my street wear the mask outside, break your heart. Freaking kills me. Like, seeing the kids with like their little tiny masks. Oh my god. And at the fair, I was looking at, just like wandering through the craft section or whatever, and there's like a section of American Girl dolls. You could buy your doll an outfit, or buy a doll or whatever, and they had little masks for the dolls, and I just can't. Like, the fact that people are actually making these things and making money off of them, freaking insanity. We're living in clown world. Mexicans are awesome people. Yes, they are awesome people until you are a cute white girl, and then the landscaping crew wants to kidnap you so that they can gang rape you. So they're awesome until then, but not hating on all of them, but in general, I've had some creepy ass Mexicans talk to me, and not a fan. Not a fan of it at all. I bought a car a few weeks ago at the dealership, never wore a mask. Everyone was wearing one. Nobody said anything. I was there for at least 3 hours. Well, I bet you killed all their nanas, too. They're so selfish. They're free-breathing, just heathen bear face. How dare you? And, if shit was, like, so deadly that they're trying to say with Delta, whatnot, why aren't they telling everyone to wear 2 and 3 masks again? Because they were doing that like last summer, or like a few months ago. Yeah, it was like a few months ago, even like earlier this year, that like, oh, you have to wear 2 and 3 masks, and 3 masks is still only 90% effective. So why aren't they telling people to do that again this time if this shit is so much more deadly and awful and whatever? It's just none of it makes any damn sense. We all know that. It's just it's really exhausting. The PC term is bike collector. No, they're bike thieves. They ain't collecting that shit. They're just thieving it. Thieving it. I mean, they might collect it in their yard, but then their other bike thief friend is going to come in and steal it out of the yard. So, yeah, definitely thieves. You would think every Mexican is in the cartel if you listen to mainstream media. Yeah, I mean, we would think a lot of things if we listen to mainstream media. I mean, we'd think that, like, our mouth droplets are going to kill people from multiple feet away through multiple houses. You would think that you live on a nonsense spinning cartoon ball. You would think that those giant dick rockets are going anywhere except the Bermuda Triangle. Like, you would think that, oh, a burger for $1 at McDonald's, that must be good for you. Man, there's so much shit that we would think if we listened to those people. And I know we all did used to think that stuff, but like once you're on this side of it, it's like being at a magician's show and you figure out exactly how they're doing the trick and you're like, oh well, the rabbit was never in the hat. Like the elephant is still on the stage. It's still there. And so I don't know, yeah. You can see through this shit. It just like, yeah, it's just like, it's just a joke, you know, and it's not even a funny joke. It's just like, you just get so mad that people can't see it. So, anyway, still up for adoption. 35, single, will grow the food. Yeah, definitely up for adoption. So, anyway. Mexican Independence Day tomorrow. Fiesta, fiesta, fiesta. Can we take a siesta, siesta, siesta? Yeah, that sounds real nice. After I decided not to go to work today, I went back to sleep. Took a real nice siesta, like 8 in the morning, after I just woken up. It was pretty legit. I delivered a DoorDash today to a young man who put his shirt up over his face as I handed him the food. Did you bitch slap him? Like, hey, excuse me, you need to lean down here and just bam, because that would have been awesome. And I mean, I think that that's all that will help some of these people at this point. And so, haven't really been wanting to talk about this because I don't like to manifest bad things. And I mean, this could be like kind of sad, whatever. Currently, so I have a ticket to get in the door at Flattoberfest, but I do not have a plane ticket. And as of right now, I do not have the money for it. So if that does not change, I will not be going to Flattoberfest. And I don't want people to feel bad for me if I don't go. I am not like begging for donations, whatever, but plane ticket is like, it's like $300 right now, round trip. So I don't really need much, but again, I don't really want to beg for money because I've done that for the last couple conferences and, you know, need to just, I don't know, make my own way. Something. I don't really like asking for help. It's not enjoyable in any way. So yeah, as of right now, might not be going to Flattoberfest, but I'm just going to put the positive intention out there that yes, I will be going some way, somehow. I will be going to Flattoberfest. So, yeah, just kind of waiting and seeing, but just gonna like pray on it and send out good thoughts to it that I will be there, because like I don't know what to possibly do if I don't get to see all of you people. Like, it's been such a long time, even just since March, at Solar Return, like every 6 months is just really not enough time to be with your people and your tribe. So, I'm going to put the positive intention out there that I will be going to Flattoberfest. I don't know how, but I will be getting there. So, there's that. And if you're, bored or whatever, nope, it's this side right there. Cash App, $ Dottiedomes, paypal.me/finding Dottie, PO Box 1598, Shelton, Washington 98584. Whatever. Not asking for help. Not. But people want me to go and you want to help out, that's fine. It's on you. It's appreciated. But good thoughts are really appreciated too. So, if you just Zulu's suitcase, yes. That's awesome. Let's see. Okay. So I think I've rambled for enough, maybe. I mean, I could just ramble all night. You all keep talking to me, whatever. Surprised Eric's not here. He's normally here. And Barbara. They're both normally here. That's normally tops my chat out at about 10. So I'm sure they'll show up in a few minutes here. But anyway, it's time for story time. I hope you're all excited. We're like halfway through this book already. It's going quite fast. And we're continuing with Prince Caspian. And are we here for a story? Yeah, this is not just Dottie's power hour of chitty chat, though that's always fun too. For whatever reason, you people like to hear me ramble on, get goofy, try and make me blush. Yeah, it's really fun. So, yeah, continuing Prince Caspian. We have chapter 7 and 8 tonight. But I'm really hot though. Truth or stream, yeah. I know. I have been thinking about doing another stream during the week, like maybe on Thursdays. I'm not sure what I want to do the topic on though. I don't know. There's so much stuff to do topics on. Kind of interested in the World's Fairs. Also, me and Zulu One were talking about doing a stream on the Bermuda Triangle. So maybe we can actually plan that one of these times. But we'll see. I would like to stream more just to talk to you people more, because not having anybody like around who gets it gets old real quick. So one more drink and then we'll get going. That's perfect because I just emptied my cup. Look at that. Hey, Eric DeLeon, he made it. Trying to sleep but ain't winning. Well, your ears must have been burning because I just mentioned that you are normally here and you are not here. And here you are. So, thank you, Sue. You rock. You are the best. Team leader. You lead the bitches. So, Thinking about Dottie, so you were Eric. Yeah, I mean, Eric's always thinking about me. Who wouldn't be? I'm so awesome. um, anyway, Chapter 7. Old Narnia in Danger. The place where they had met the fawns was, of course, Dancing Lawn itself, and here Caspian and his friends remained till the night of the great council, to sleep under the stars, to drink nothing but well water, and to live chiefly on nuts and wild fruit. Was a strange experience for Caspian after his bed with silken sheets in a tapestried chamber at the castle, with meals laid out on gold and silver dishes in the anteroom, and attendants ready at his call. But he had never enjoyed himself more. Never had sleep been more refreshing, nor food tasted more savory, and he began already to harden, and his face wore a kinglier look. When the great night came, and his various strange subjects came stealing into the lawn by ones and twos and threes, or by sixes and sevens, the moon then shining almost at her full, his heart swelled as he saw their numbers and heard their greetings. All whom he had met were there. Bulgy bears and red dwarfs and black dwarfs, moles and badgers, hares and hedgehogs, and others whom he had not yet seen, 5 satyrs as red as foxes, the whole contingent of talking mice, armed to the teeth and following a shrill trumpet, some owls and the old raven of Ravenscour. Last of all, and this took Caspian's breath away, with the centaurs came a small but genuine giant, Wimbleweather of Dead Man's Hill, carrying on his back a basketful of rather seasick dwarfs who had accepted his offer of a lift and were now wishing they had walked instead. The bulgy bears were very anxious to have the feast first and leave the council till afterward, perhaps till tomorrow. Reepicheep and his mice said that the councils and feasts could both wait, and proposed storming Miraz in his own castle that very night. Pattertwig and the other squirrels said that they could not talk and eat at the same time, so why not have the council and feast all at once? The moles proposed throwing up entrenchments round the lawn before they did anything else. The fawns thought it would be better to begin with a solemn dance. The old raven, while agreeing with the bears that it would take too long to have a full council before supper, begged to be allowed to give a brief address to the whole company. But Caspian and the centaurs and the dwarfs overruled all these suggestions and insisted on holding a real council of war at once. And Eric says, I see ears on the top of your head. What kind of animal are you tonight? I haven't figured out if they are cat ears or bear ears. They kind of look like bear ears. Which, I mean, that would make kind of sense since I'm retarded bear. So there's that. And yeah, I don't know where Barbara is. She's normally here. She'll probably be here shortly. Her daughter might be streaming. I'm not sure. I don't remember what day her daughter streams, but I'm sure she'll be here. When all the other creatures had been persuaded to sit down quietly in a great circle, and when, with more difficulty, they had gotten Pattertwig to stop running to and fro and saying, "Silence, silence, everyone!" for the king's speech, Caspian, feeling a little nervous, got up. "Narnians," he began. But he never got any further, for at that moment Camillo the hare said, "Hush! There's a man somewhere near." They were all creatures of the wild, accustomed to being hunted, and they all became still as statues. The beasts all turned their noses in the direction which Camillo had indicated. "Smells like man, and yet not quite like man," whispered Trufflehunter. "It's getting steadily nearer," said Camillo. "2 badgers, and you 3 dwarfs, with your bows at the ready, go softly off to meet it," said Caspian. "We'll settle in," said a black dwarf grimly, fitting a shaft to his bowstring. "Don't shoot it if it is alone," said Caspian. "Catch it." Why? Asked the dwarf. Do as you're told, said Glenstorm the centaur. Am I still working? Yes, I am working. Very limited hours currently, and my job ends on October 1st. So, yeah. Here's a picture for you guys. I know y'all love the pictures. They're a nice little gathering before the war or whatever. Everyone waited in silence, while the 3 dwarfs and 2 badgers trotted stealthily across to the trees on the northwest side of the lawn. Then came a sharp dwarfish cry. Stop, who goes there? And a sudden spring. A moment later, a voice, which Caspian knew well, could be heard saying, all right, I'm unarmed. Take my wrists if you like, worthy badgers, but don't bite right through them. I want to speak to the king. Dr. Cornelius, cried Caspian with joy, and rushed forward to greet his old tutor. Everyone else crowded round. Ha, said Knickerbrick, a renegade dwarf, a half and halfer? Shall I pass my sword through its throat? Be quiet, Knickerbrick, said Trumpkin. The creature can't help its ancestry. Panda ears? Yeah, I mean, maybe. You're gonna get killed for that. Yeah, Zulu one is that I have my throwing knives. Super dangerous with them. Pictures, yay, yeah. If only it was a pop-up book. Make everything just so much better. This is my greatest friend and the savior of my life, said Caspian, and anyone who doesn't like his company may leave my army at once. Dearest doctor, I am glad to see you again. However did you find us out? By a little use of simple magic, your majesty, said the doctor, who was still puffing and blowing from having walked so fast. But there's no time to go into that now. We must all fly from this place at once. You are already betrayed and Miraz is on the move. Before midday tomorrow, you will be surrounded. Betrayed, said Caspian, and by whom? Another renegade dwarf, no doubt, said Knickerbrick. By your horse, Destrier, said Dr. Cornelius. The poor brute knew no better. When you were knocked off, of course, he went dawdling back to his stable in the castle. Then the secret of your flight was known. I made myself scarce, having no wish to be questioned about it in Miraz's torture chamber. I had a pretty good guess from my crystal as to where I should find you, but all day, that was the day before yesterday, I saw Miraz's tracking parties out in the woods. Yesterday I learned that his army is out. I don't think some of your pure-blooded dwarfs have as much woodcraft as might be expected. You've left tracks all over the place. Great carelessness. At any rate, something has warned Miraz that old Narnia is not so dead as he had hoped, and he is on the move. Dude's name is Knickerbrick. That is hilarious. Yeah. Pretty funny. And it is spelled Nikabrik. All one word. Knickerbrick. Knickerbrick. It's a funny name. They got real good names in here. Hurrah! Said a very shrill and small voice from somewhere at the doctor's feet. Let them come. All I ask is that the king will put me and my people in the front. What on earth, said Dr. Cornelius, has your majesty got grasshoppers or mosquitoes in your army? Then, after stooping down and peering carefully through his spectacles, he broke into a laugh. By the lion, he swore, it's a mouse. Signor Mouse, I desire your better acquaintance. I am honored by meeting so valiant a beast. My friendship you shall have, learned man, piped Reepicheep, and any dwarf or giant in the army who does not give you good language shall have my sword to reckon with. Is there time for this foolery? Asked Knickerbrick. What are our plans, battle or flight? Battle, if need be, said Trumpkin, but we are hardly ready for it yet, and this is no very defensible place. I don't like the idea of running away, said Caspian. Hear him, said the bulgy bears. Whatever we do, don't let's have any running, especially not after supper, and not too soon after it either. Oh, especially not before supper, and not too soon after it neither. Trumpkin 2022, yes. Yes, Trumpkin. Oh, hail Trumpkin. So funny. Defensible as in a rampart. Yeah, they're in the middle of a forest. So they could be easily surrounded and ambushed, and yeah, they're not very well protected. So those who run first do not always run last, said the centaur. And why should we let the enemy choose our position instead of choosing it ourselves? Let us find a strong place. That's wise, your majesty, that's wise, said Truffle Hunter. But where are we to go? Asked several voices. Your majesty, said Dr. Cornelius, and all you variety of creatures, I think we must fly east and down the river to the great woods. The Telmarines hate that region. They have always been afraid of the sea and of something that may come over the sea. That is why they have let the great woods grow up. If traditions speak true, the ancient Cair was at the river mouth. All that part is friendly to us and hateful to our enemies. We must go to Aslan's How. Aslan's How, said several voices. We do not know what it is. I wonder if it's on the map. Let's see. Oh, ow. My head almost popped. How would... Nope. Aslan's How is not on the map. Tisk tisk. Must be really well hidden. It lies within the skirts of the great woods, and it is a huge mound which Narnians raised in very ancient times over a very magical place, where there stood, and perhaps still stands, a very magical stone. Oh, so it's where the stone table is. So that is... Well, here's Aslan's camp, and then the stone table was... Oh, the stone table is right there. So maybe that's where Aslan's How is. A strong place, you mean like the stronghold. Hey, I'm getting good with this vocabulary stuff. I mean, words are really hard, so you're really getting there. Good for you. Way to go, Eric. My neighbors are signing party tonight. I don't know what that means. Perhaps still stands a very magical stone. The mound is all hollowed out within into galleries and caves, and the stone is in the central cave of all. There is a room in the mound for all our stores, and those of us who have most need of cover and are most accustomed to underground life can be lodged in the caves. Singing. That makes a little more sense. Since they're in battle, it must be on the maps. Has the battlefield straight north on the map. I mean, they could be, yeah. But I believe they're going to here, the stone table. Though now it's just a mound with like the stones underneath the ground. Because remember, it's been, I don't know, a few hundred years since Aslan was on the table. So it's been a good while. The rest of us can lie in the wood. At a pinch, all of us, except this worthy giant, could retreat into the mound itself, and there we should be beyond the reach of every danger except famine. It is a good thing we have a learned man among us, said Truffle Hunter, but Trumpkin muttered under his breath, Soup and celery, I wish our leaders would think less of these old wives' tales and more about victuals and arms. But all approved of Cornelius's proposal, and that very night, half an hour later, they were on the march. Before sunrise, they had arrived at Aslan's house. It was certainly an awesome place, a round green hill on top of another hill, long since grown over with trees, and one little low doorway leading into it. The tunnels inside were a perfect maze till you got to know them, and they were lined and roofed with smooth stones, and on the stones, peering in the twilight, Caspian saw strange characters and snaky patterns, and pictures in which the form of a lion was repeated again and again. It all seemed to belong to an even older Narnia than the Narnia of which his nurse had told him. Trumpkin sounds like some kind of vegetable. Yeah, it does. It does indeed. Sounds kind of like a turnip and a pumpkin and trumpkin. Yeah. I feel that. Give me 1 second. Not to brag, but I literally have an Aslan lion action figure. That's awesome. That is really funny. It was after they had taken up their quarters in and around the house that fortune began to turn against them. King Miraz's scouts soon found their new lair, and he and his army arrived at the edge of the woods. Ooh. And as so often happens, the enemy turned out stronger than they had reckoned. Caspian's heart sank as he saw company after company arriving, and though Miraz's men may have been afraid of going into the wood, they were even more afraid of Miraz. And with him in command, they carried battle deeply into it, and sometimes almost to the house itself. Caspian and other captains, of course, made many sorties into the open country. Thus there was fighting on most days and sometimes by night as well. But Caspian's party had on the whole the worst of it. At last there came a night when everything had gone as badly as possible, and the rain, which had been falling heavily all day, had ceased at nightfall, only to give place to raw cold. That morning Caspian had arranged what was his biggest battle yet, and all had hung their hopes on it. He, with most of the dwarfs, was to have fallen on the king's right wing at daybreak. And then, when they were heavily engaged, giant Wimbleweather, with the centaurs and some of the fiercest beasts, was to have broken out from another place and endeavored to cut the king's right off from the rest of the army. But it had all failed. No one had warned Caspian, because no one in these later days of Narnia remembered that giants are not all that clever. Poor Wimbleweather, though as brave as a lion, was a true giant in that respect. He had broken out at the wrong time and from the wrong place, and both his party and Caspian's had suffered badly and done the enemy little harm. The best of the bears had been hurt, a centaur terribly wounded, and there were few in Caspian's party who had not lost blood. It was a gloomy company that huddled under the dripping trees to eat their scanty supper. The gloomiest of all was giant Wimbleweather. He knew it was all his fault. He sat in silence, shedding big tears, which collected on the end of his nose, and then fell off with a huge splash on the whole bivouac. Oh man. Bivouac. I don't know how to say this word. I'm just going to stop. The whole party of the mice. who had just been beginning to get warm and drowsy. They all jumped up, shaking the water out of their ears and wringing their little blankets, and asked the giant in shrill but forcible voices whether he thought they weren't wet enough without this sort of thing. And then other people woke up and told the mice they had been enrolled as scouts and not as a concert party. And when they couldn't keep quiet and Wimbleweather tiptoed away to find some place where he could be miserable in peace and stepped on somebody's tail, and somebody, they said afterward it was a fox, bit him, and so everyone was out of temper. Bears? Are you talking about Owen? Yeah, I mean, probably. Bears are everywhere, so... And here's the giant. He's sad. He's crying because he stepped out of line. So, yeah, that's what happens. That is what happens. So, if I knew how to do computer stuff, I'd call in to show you guys. Yeah, I mean, computer stuff is really tricky. It's almost as hard as going to space. So, you started at 10:30. I must have fallen asleep a little bit and woke up before tuning in. I started, well, it was about 5 minutes after 8. And then I was talking about just Washington and possibly not going to Flattoberfest, and so that took up like the first half hour. So here we are. Yeah, almost 9 o'clock. But in the secret and magical chamber at the heart of the How, King Caspian with Cornelius and the Badger and Nickabrick and Trumpkin were at council. Thick pillars of ancient workmanship supported the roof. In the center of the stone itself, a stone table split right down the center and covered with what had once been writing of some kind, but ages of wind and rain and snow had almost worn them away in old times when the stone had stood on the hilltop and the mound had not yet been built above it. They were not using the table nor sitting round it. It was too magic a thing for any common use. They sat on logs a little way from it, and between them was a rough wooden table on which stood a rude clay lamp lighting up their pale faces and throwing big shadows on the walls. "If your majesty is ever to use the horn," said Truffle Hunter, "I think the time has come now." Caspian had of course told them of his treasure several days ago. "We are certainly in great need," answered Caspian, "but it is hard to be sure we are at our greatest. Supposing there came an even worse need and we had already used it." "By that argument," said Nickabrick, "your majesty will never use it until it is too late." "I agree with that," said Dr. Cornelius. "And what do you think, Trumpkin?" asked Caspian. I'm possibly not going to Flattoberfest, Eric, because I have been waiting on the money that I'm supposed to get from Amazon, and it's just not coming in. It's just, I don't know, they're like having an issue, like actually believing that I work there, some bullshit, I don't know. It's been just like a battle. And so I have my ticket to get in the door, but I currently don't have a plane ticket. And so I'm hoping that things will work out in my favor and that I will actually get the money, be able to get my plane ticket, go to Flattoberfest. If not, well, then I will just, cry alone in my room, sad that I'm not with all my friends. But I don't want to think about that because that is not happy or good or fun at all. So I'm going to just imagine that I am somehow, some way going to make it to Flattoberfest. And yeah, we're just going to stick with that thought. So that's where we are on that. Oh, as for me, said the Red Dwarf, who had been listening with complete indifference, your Majesty knows I think the horn, and that bit of broken stone over there, and your great King Peter, and your lion Aslan, are all eggs and moonshine. It's all one to me when your Majesty blows the horn. All I insist on is that the army is told nothing about it. There's no good raising hopes of magical help, which, as I think, are sure to be disappointed. Then, in the name of Aslan, we will wind Queen Susan's horn, said Caspian. My nose is really itchy. It's driving me crazy. There is one thing, sire, said Dr. Cornelius, that should perhaps be done first. We do not know what form the help will take. It might call Aslan himself from oversea. But I think it is more likely to call Peter the High King and his mighty consorts down from the high pass. But in either case, I do not think we can be sure that the help will come to this very spot. You never said a truer word, put in Trumpkin. I think, went on the learned man, that they or he will come back to one or other of the ancient places of Narnia. This, where we now sit, is the most ancient and most deeply magical of all, and here I think the answer is likeliest to come. But there are two others. One is Lantern Waste, upriver, west of Beaver's Dam, where the royal children first appeared in Narnia, as the records tell. The other is down at the river mouth where their castle of Cair Paravel once stood. And if Aslan himself comes, that would be the best place for meeting him too, for every story says that he is the son of the great emperor over the sea, and over the sea he will pass. I should like very much to send messengers to both places, to Lantern Waste and the river mouth, to receive them, or him, or it. Just as I thought, muttered Trumpkin. The first result of all this foolery is not to bring us help, but to lose us 2 fighters. Who would you think of sending, Dr. Cornelius? Asked Caspian. Squirrels are best for getting through enemy country without being caught, said Trufflehunter. All our squirrels, and we haven't many, said Knickerbrick, are rather flighty. The only one I'd trust on a job like that would be Pattertwig. Let it be Pattertwig, then, said King Caspian. And who for our other messenger? I know you'd go, Trufflehunter, but you haven't the speed, nor you, Dr. Cornelius. I won't go, said Knickerbrick. With all these humans and beasts about, there must be a dwarf here to see that the dwarfs are fairly treated. Thimbles and thunderstorms, cried Trumpkin in a rage. Is that how you speak to the king? Send me, sire, I'll go. But I thought you don't believe in the horn, Trumpkin, said Caspian. No more I do, your majesty. But what's that got to do with it? I might as well die on a wild goose chase as die here. You are my king. I know the difference between giving advice and taking orders. You've had my advice, and now it's time for orders. I will never forget this, Trumpkin, said Caspian. Send for Pattertwig, one of you, and when shall I blow the horn? I would wait for sunrise, your majesty, said Dr. Cornelius. That sometimes has an effect in operations of white magic. A few minutes later, Pattertwig arrived and had his task explained to him, as he was, like many squirrels, full of courage and dash and energy and excitement and mischief, not to say conceit. He no sooner heard it than was eager to be off. It was arranged that he should run for Lantern Waste while Trumpkin made the shorter journey to the river mouth. After a hasty meal, they both set off with the fervent thanks and good wishes of the king, the badger, and Cornelius. Chapter 8. How They Left the Island. Oh boy, things are heating up, aren't they? And so, said Trumpkin, for as you have realized, it was he who had been telling all this story to the 4 children, sitting on the grass in the ruined hall of Cair Paravel. And so I put a crust or two in my pocket, left behind all weapons but my dagger, and took to the woods in the gray of the morning. I'd been plugging away for many hours when there came a sound that I'd never heard the like of in my born days. I won't forget that. The air was full of it, loud as thunder but far longer, cool and sweet as music over water, but strong enough to shake the woods. And I said to myself, if that's not the horn, call me a rabbit. And a moment later I wondered why he hadn't blown it sooner. What time was it? Asked Edmund. Between 9 and 10 of the clock, said Trumpkin. Just when we were at the railway station, said all the children, and looked at one another with shining eyes. Please go on, said Lucy to the dwarf. Well, as I was saying, I wondered, but I went on as hard as I could pelt. I kept on all night, and then, when it was half light this morning, as if I had no more sense than a giant, I risked a short cut across open country to cut off a big loop of the river and was caught, not by the army, but by a pompous old fool who was charge of a little castle which is Miraz's last stronghold toward the coast. I needn't tell you they got no true tale out of me, but I was a dwarf, and that was enough. But lobsters and lollipops. It is a good thing the seneschal was a pompous fool. Anyone else would have run me through there and then, but nothing would do for him short of a grand execution, sending me down to the ghosts in the full ceremonial way. And then this young lady, he nodded at Susan, does her bit of archery, and it was pretty shooting, let me tell you. And here we are, and without my armor, for of course they took that. He knocked out and refilled his pipe. Great Scott, said Peter. So it was the horn, your own horn, Sue, that dragged us all off that seat on the platform yesterday morning. I can hardly believe it, yet it all fits in. I don't know why you shouldn't believe it, said Lucy. If you believe in magic at all. Aren't there lots of stories about magic forcing people out of one place, out of one world, into another? I mean, when a magician in the Arabian Nights calls up a djinn, it has to come. We had to come just like that. Yes, said Peter. I suppose that makes it feel so queer what makes it feel so queer is that in the stories, it's always someone in our world who does the calling. One doesn't really think about where the djinn's coming from. Seattle to Spartanburg is 2,700 miles. That would be about 42 hours in a car. It'll be about $500 in gas round trip. Yeah, I can't do that. There's no way I'm driving. No, I thought that I was going to drive, but I'm not going to drive by myself. I don't really know anyone that I could be in the car with that long, and I don't know. It doesn't seem feasible to me to drive unless I don't know, someone had an RV or something and is planning on driving, but yeah, I don't know. Driving doesn't sound like a good option to me if I was going by myself, and yeah, it would be so much more expensive with hotels and all that stuff. So planning on flying, which is about $315 round trip. And yeah, I'm planning on that. I thought about taking the train, but I don't know. I just don't know. The fact that I don't have the money definitely dampens my options, because if you don't have money, you can't really plan a lot of stuff. Doubtful that I can get to where I'm going with my jam. So anyway, though maybe it's really good jam. So really good. really good. Yeah, I was surprised at how inexpensive it is to fly currently, because normally, like, as it gets closer to the time that you're flying, it gets much more expensive. So it's not bad, but yeah, I just have to like manifest that I'm going to actually make it there. So, and now and now we know what it feels like for the gin, said Edmund with a chuckle. Golly, it's a bit uncomfortable to know that we can be whistled for like that. It's worse than what Father says about living at the mercy of the telephone. But we want to be here, don't we? Said Lucy. If Aslan wants us. Meanwhile, said the dwarf, what are we to do? I suppose I'd better go back to King Caspian and tell him no help has come. No help, said Susan, but it has worked, and here we are. Guess everyone fell asleep. I'm the only one up. Probably. I mean, Zulu 1 normally falls asleep during these, so that wouldn't be surprising. Yes, to be sure, I see that, said the dwarf, whose pipe seemed to be blocked. At any rate, he made himself very busy cleaning it. But, well, I mean, but don't you yet see who we are? Shouted Lucy. You are stupid. I suppose you are the 4 children out of the old stories, said Trumpkin, and I'm very glad to meet you, of course. Kirk's still here, Sue's still here. See, you're not alone. I mean, it shows there's 5 people watching, so I'm very glad to meet you, of course, and it's very interesting, no doubt, but no offense, and he hesitated again. Do get on and say whatever you're going to say, said Edmund. Well, then, no offense, said Trumpkin, but you know, the king and Truffle Hunter and Dr. Cornelius were expecting, well, if you see what I mean, help. To put it in another way, I think they'd been imagining you as great warriors as it is. We're awfully fond of children and all that, but just at the moment, in the middle of a war, but I'm sure you understand. No, you're not. You haven't said anything in 30 minutes, period. They're here in spirit, so. You mean you think we're no good, said Edmund, getting red in the face. Now, pray, don't be offended, interrupted the dwarf. I assure you, my dear little friends, little from you is really a bit too much, said Edmund, jumping up. I suppose you don't believe we won the Battle of Baruna. Well, you can say what you like about me, because I know. There's no good losing our tempers, said Peter. Let's fit him out with fresh armor and fit ourselves out from the treasure chamber and have a talk after that. I don't quite see the point, began Edmund, but Lucy whispered in his ear, hadn't we better do what Peter says? He is the High King, you know, and I think he has an idea. So Edmund agreed, and by the aid of his torch, they all, including Trumpkin, went down the steps again into the dark coldness and dusty splendor of the treasure house. The dwarf's eyes glistened as he saw the wealth that lay on the shelves, though he had to stand on tiptoes to do so. And he muttered to himself, it would never do to let Neckabrick see this, never. They found easily enough a mail shirt for him, a sword, a helmet, a shield, a bow and quiver full of arrows, all of dwarfish size. The helmet was of copper set with rubies, and there was gold on the hilt of the sword. Trumpkin had never seen, much less carried, so much wealth in all his life. The Battle of My Sharona. Isn't that a song? You're going to get banned for life. The children also put on mail shirts and helmets. A sword and shield were found for Edmund, and bow for Lucy. Peter and Susan were, of course, already carrying their gifts. As they came back up the stairway, jingling in their mail, and already looking and feeling more like Narnians and less like schoolchildren, The two boys were behind, apparently making some plan. Lucy heard Edmund say, "No, let me do it. It will be more of a sucks for him if I win, and less of a letdown for us all if I fail." "All right, Ed," said Peter. "I want bear armor." Yes, wouldn't that be legendary? Just have, like, bear crest on your chest. Like, I feel like we need to do that. Just, like, Beartaria logo. And, yeah. Is it the bear that is from the Basque region? I guess we'll never know. When they came out into the daylight, Edmund turned to the dwarf very politely and said, "I've got something to ask you. Kids like us don't often have the chance of meeting a great warrior like you. Would you have a little fencing match with me? It would be frightfully decent." "But, lad," said Trumpkin, "these swords are sharp." "I know," said Edmund, "but I'll never get anywhere near you, and you'll be quite clever enough to disarm me without doing me any damage." "It's a dangerous game," said Trumpkin, "but since you make such a point, I'll try a pass or two." I want to take fencing classes. That would be really fun. Yeah, that would be super fun. Every time you say Edmund, I think of that movie, The Count of Monte Cristo. You've never watched it. It's a good film. You're correct. I have not watched that. You are correct, in fact. I have seen, I don't know, people always get mad at me at my, my lack of movies that I've seen. And it's like, sorry that I haven't seen everything that every other person has seen. Just the way that shit goes, I guess. I don't even know. Both swords were out in a moment, and the three others jumped off the dais and stood watching. It was well worth it. It was not like the silly fighting you see with broadswords on the stage. It was not even like the rapier fighting, which you sometimes see rather better done. This was real broadsword fighting. The great thing is to slash at your enemy's legs and feet because they are the parts that have no armor. And when he slashes at yours, you jump with both feet off the ground so that his blows go under them. This gave the dwarf an advantage because Edmund, being much taller, had to be always stooping. I don't think Edmund would have had a chance if he had fought Trumpkin 24 hours earlier, but the heir of Narnia had been working upon him ever since he arrived on the island, and all his old battles came back to him, and his arms and fingers remembered their old skill. He was King Edmund once more. Round and round the two combatants circled, stroke after stroke they gave, and Susan, who never could learn to like this sort of thing, shouted out, "Oh, do be careful!" And then so quickly that no one, unless they knew, as Peter did, could quite see how it happened, Edmund flashed his sword round with a peculiar twist. The dwarf's sword flew out of his grip, and Trumpkin was wringing his empty hand as you do after a sting from a cricket bat. "Not hurt, I hope, my dear little friend," said Edmund, panting a little and returning his own sword to its sheath. "I see the point," said Trumpkin dryly. "You know a trick I never learned." "That's quite true," put in Peter. "The best swordsman in the world may be disarmed by a trick that's new to him. I think it's only fair to give Trumpkin a chance at something else. Will you have a shooting match with my sister? There are no tricks in archery, you know." "Ah, you're jokers, you are," said the dwarf. "I begin to see, as if I didn't know how she can shoot after what happened this morning. All the same, I'll have a try." He spoke gruffly, but his eyes brightened, for he was a famous bowman among his own people. All five of them came out into the courtyard. "What's to be the target?" asked Peter. "I think that apple hanging over the wall on the branch there would do," said Susan. "That'll do nicely, lass," said Trumpkin. You mean the yellow one near the middle of the arch? No, not that, said Susan, the red one up above, over the battlement. The dwarf's face fell. Looks more like a cherry than an apple, he muttered, but he said nothing out loud. They tossed up for the first shot, greatly to the interest of Trumpkin, who had never seen a coin tossed before. And Susan lost. They were to shoot from the top of the steps that led from the hall into the courtyard. Everyone could see from the way the dwarf took his position and handled his bow that he knew what he was about. Oh, good night, Eric. Thank you for stopping by. Those pictures look photoshopped, but they have to be, right? Of course, who would believe in a dwarf if they weren't photoshopped? Though, I mean, compared to like some of the bears, I am probably a dwarf. Because, when I met Owen at the Dallas conference, he's 6'8" and I'm 5'3". So I was in heels and I still like barely up to his chest. So dwarfs are still here. We're just more like fairies and sprites and pixies and whatnot. I wish I was so small that I could ride in someone's shirt pocket. Really, yeah. I would love to be just little tiny, fit in your hand. Oh, that would be great. I also wish I could fly and, instant teleportation. So, I also wish I had fucking 50 acres and a big ass garden, bunch of chickens, goats. So, gotta have dreams. Twang went the string. It was an excellent shot. The tiny apple shook as the arrow passed, and a leaf came fluttering down. Then Susan went to the top of the steps and strung her bow. She was not enjoying her match half so much as Edmund had enjoyed his, not because she had any doubt about hitting the apple, but because Susan was so tender-hearted that she almost hated to beat someone who had been beaten already. The dwarf watched her keenly as she drew the shaft to her ear. A moment later, with a soft thump, which they could all hear in that quiet place, the apple fell to the grass with Susan's arrow in it. "Oh, well done, Sue," shouted the other children. "It wasn't really any better than yours," said Susan to the dwarf. "I think there was a tiny breath of wind as you shot." "No, there wasn't," said Trumpkin. "Don't tell me. I know when I am fairly beaten. I won't even say that the scar of my last wound catches me a bit when I get my arm well back." "Oh, are you wounded?" asked Lucy. "Do let me look." "It's not a sight for little girls," began Trumpkin. But Owen is Nephilim. Yeah, for sure. It's literally a giant. And so, like, what does that make us fun-sized people? If he's a Nephilim, what am I? Am I just a dwarf? Like, just like a giant dwarf? Sounds kind of sad. I feel like there's probably some cool ancient thing that that makes those of us small, able to be shot out of cannon, something like that. But I'm sure there's good things about being tall and being short. I mean, I don't know any different, and I seem to be getting along just fine. But yeah, definitely advantages to being tall. "It's not a sight for little girls," began Trumpkin, but then he suddenly checked himself. "There I go, talking like a fool again," he said. "I suppose you're as likely to be a great surgeon as your brother was to be a great swordsman, or your sister to be a great archer." He sat down on the steps and took off his hauberk and slipped down his little shirt, showing an arm hairy and muscular in proportion as a sailor's, though not much bigger than a child's. There was a clumsy bandage on the shoulder, which Lucy proceeded to unroll. Underneath, the cut looked very nasty, and there was a good deal of swelling. "Oh, poor Trumpkin," said Lucy. "How horrid!" Then she carefully dripped onto it one single drop of the cordial from her flask. Hello, what have you done? Said Trumpkin, but however he turned his head and squinted and whisked his beard to and fro, he couldn't quite see his own shoulder. Then he felt it as well as he could, getting his arms and fingers into very difficult positions as you do when you're trying to scratch a place that is just out of reach. Then he swung his arm and raised it and tried the muscles and finally jumped to his feet, crying, "Giants and junipers, it's cured! It's as good as new." After that, he burst into a great laugh and said, "Well, I've made as big a fool of myself as a dwarf ever did. No offense, I hope. My humble duty to your majesties, all humble duty. And thanks for my life, my cure, my breakfast, and my lesson." And it's funny that, like, he can't look at his shoulder. Like, I can see my shoulder right there. See that shoulder? Like, how are you not able to see your shoulder? I don't get it. Maybe it was like on the back of his shoulder. I don't know. He's 10 inches taller than me, but we get clothes that fit. This is true. This is true. And shouldn't you be measured in Rogans? So if you're, would that make you like 5'10"? So that's like, what is that, like 19, 20 Rogans tall? So, I mean, that's not bad. Not bad at all. At least you're not like, I'm probably like, what would 5'3" be? Or like, what, 15, 16 Rogans tall? But it doesn't matter how tall women are, so it doesn't apply. Doesn't apply at all. Never met a guy who was like, "Oh, a short, cute white girl? No thanks. No, pass. Sounds horrible." No, everyone loves us short white women. Must be nice. Must be nice to be so short. Or so tall. Whatever you are. The children all said it was quite all right, and not to mention it. "And now," said Peter, "if you've really decided to believe in us—" "I have," said the dwarf. It's quite clear what we have to do. We must join King Caspian at once." "The sooner the better," said Trumpkin. "My being such a fool has already wasted about an hour." "It's about 2 days' journey the way you came," said Peter. "For us, I mean, we can't walk all day and night like you dwarfs." Ow. Then he turned to the others. "What Trumpkin calls Aslan's How is obviously the stone table itself. You remember it was about half a day's march, or a little less, from there down to the fords of Baruna. Baruna's Bridge, we call it," said Trumpkin. "But you're female, yes. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Does not matter how fun-sized I am. Yeah, definitely does not." "There was no bridge in our time," said Peter. "And then from Baruna down to here was another day and a bit. We used to get home about tea time on the second day, going easily. Going hard, we could do the whole thing in a day and a half, perhaps." "But remember, it's all woods now," said Trumpkin, "and there are enemies to dodge." Enemies. "Look out," said Edmund. "Need we go by the same way that our dear little friend came?" "No more of that, your majesty, if you love me," said the dwarf. "Very well," said Edmund. "May I spy our DLF?" "Oh, Edmund," said Susan, don't keep on at him like that." "That's all right, lass, I mean, your majesty," said Trumpkin with a chuckle. "A jibe won't raise a blister. And after that, they often called him the DLF, till they'd almost forgotten what it meant. Dear little friend. Dear little friend, the DLF. "As I was saying," continued Edmund, "we needn't go that way. Why shouldn't we row a little south till we come to Glasswater Creek and row up it? That brings us up behind the hill of the stone table, and we'll be safe while we're at sea. If we start at once, we can be at the head of Glasswater before dark, get a few hours sleep, and be with Caspian pretty early tomorrow. What a thing it is to know the coast, said Trumpkin. None of us knows anything about Glasswater. What about food, said Susan. Oh, we'll have to do with apples, said Lucy. Do let's get on. We've done nothing yet, and we've been here nearly 2 days. And anyway, no one's going to have my hat for a fish basket again, said Edmund. They used one of the raincoats as a kind of bag and put a good many apples in it. Then they all had a good long drink at the well, for they would meet no more fresh water till they landed at the head of the creek and went down to the boat. The children were sorry to leave Cape Paravel, which even in ruins had begun to feel like home again. The DLF had better steer, said Peter, and Ed and I will take an oar each. Half a moment, though. We'd better take off our mail. We're going to be pretty warm before we're done. The girls had better be in the bows and shout directions to the DLF, because he doesn't know the way. You'd better get us a fair way out to sea till we've passed the island. And soon the green wooded coast of the island was falling away behind them, and its little bays and headlands were beginning to look flatter, and the boat was rising and falling in the gentle swell. The sea began to grow bigger around them, and in the distance bluer, but close round the boat it was green and bubbly. Everything smelled salt, and there was no noise except the swishing of water and the clop-clop of water against the sides, and the splash of the oars and the jolting noise of the rowlocks. The sun grew hot. I really need more water. It was delightful for Lucy and Susan in the bows, bending over the edge and trying to get their hands in the sea, which they could never quite reach. The bottom, mostly pure, pale sand, but with occasional patches of purple seaweed, could be seen beneath them. It's like old times, said Lucy. Do you remember our voyage to Terebinthia and Galma and Seven Isles and the Lone Islands? Yes, said Susan, and our great ship, the Splendor Highline, with the swan's head at her prow and the carved swan's wings coming back almost to her waist, and the silken sails and the great stern lanterns, and the feasts on the poop and the musicians. Do you remember when we had the musicians up in the rigging playing flutes so it sounded like music out of the sky? Sounds delightful. Presently, Susan took over Edmund's oar, and he came forward to join Lucy. They had passed the island now and stood closer in to the shore, all wooded and deserted. They would have thought it very pretty if they had not remembered the time when it was open and breezy and full of merry friends. Phew, this is pretty grueling work, said Peter. Can I row for a bit? Said Lucy. The oars are too big for you, said Peter shortly, not because he was cross, but because he had no strength to spare for talking. And just like that, that's the end. The end. One of these times, I feel like it would be fun to just read a whole book in one sitting. Because these books go by so quick that I feel like it would be fun to just have it'd probably be like a 5-hour stream. Maybe we'll do that with the last one. We'll just celebrate the end of this series and just read the whole book all at once. That would be really fun. But yeah, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. And I hope you're all enjoying it as well. So give the video a like and share it with your friends. And I have all the other books. Starts with The Magician's Nephew. That's the first book. Have them all in playlist. Magician's Nephew, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. the horse and his boy, and now we're on Prince Caspian. And then next is the voyage of the Dawn Treader, and then the Silver Chair, and then the last battle. So, got a little ways to go. And then we'll be doing the Lord of the Rings after this. So, you are most welcome for my reading. Thank you for being here, Basque Bear. I appreciate it. And I'm glad you are enjoying it, Kirk. I know how you love those pictures. So, at least there's pictures here behind me to, you know, show where we are. Super glad I got this map. And Sue, you're enjoying it too. I'm very glad. Very glad you're here, as always. So, let me go through and say hi to everyone before I ski-daddle out of here. And again, if you would like to support me and my channel, Cash App, $Dottiedomes, PayPal.me/FindingDottie, and P.O. Box 1598, Shelton, Washington 98584. So, you can buy my paintings, you can buy my jam, email me if you have work for me, Dottie'sWonderDomes1111@gmail.com. So, yeah. Sue Finelli's here, Basque Bear, Kirk Wilson, Eric DeLeon was here. He went to bed. That's okay. That's okay. It happens. People get tired. He's like 3 hours ahead of me too, so I'd imagine he's tired. Carrie Skates. La la la. Scroll, 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 scroll. Zulu one. He always falls asleep too. It happens. It just happens sometimes. Can't be helped. I think that's everyone. I think that's everyone. Don't forget to get your salsa. www.imperiosalsa.com. Don't forget to get the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, where all your apps are found and bought and enjoyed. And don't forget to get your tickets to Flattoberfest at flatearthfestivals.com. It's on October 23rd and 24th in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So, I'm going to manifest that I will see you all there, and I'm very excited for it. So, yeah. I thank you all for being here. It's always a pleasure. And I'll see y'all on the flat side. This has been Story Time with Dottie. Much love, guys and gals. Bye-bye.